Hello, this is an Essay Speaks video focusing on managing up in student affairs. My name is Jeffrey Crosby, and I'm a 2018 graduate of Cornell University. After earning my bachelor's degree in psychology, I joined the ILR Office of Career Services. In my first professional role in student affairs, I am consistently practicing my managing up skills through the execution of my daily responsibilities as they relate to the goals that are set by my supervisor and co-presenter, Anu Lyons.
Hi everyone, my name is Anu Lyons, as Jeff mentioned, and I work in the ILR Office of Career Services in the ILR School at Cornell University. I serve as the director and Jeff's direct supervisor, and in addition to us, we also have 3 career advisors and 1 employer connection specialist who works directly with our employers who come to campus and recruit our students. All of the advisors and Jeff, as well as the employer connection specialist, report directly to me. Today, we're going to review a concept called managing up and share briefly from our perspectives as a supervisor and supervisee what we can do to maximize our relationship to meet the goals of the office as well as the overall university and ultimately help support our students. Jeff?
We do have a few learning outcomes we hope to achieve during this talk. After this session, we hope that you are able to describe the phenomenon of managing up, and we also hope that you are able to identify important tips for managing up in the work environment.
In addition, we hope you recognize that managing up as a skill can be developed over time. It's not something that people can innately have, but it needs some of that attention over time. In addition, we hope that participants will learn about the importance of managing up at every level of your professional experience, not just at the entry level, but also at a director or a VP or whatever the case may be in your career trajectory.
Within student affairs, much focus is placed on how to lead a group, manage teams, and how to be an effective supervisor. However, every party within a supervisory relationship plays a critical role in achieving common goals, and the concept of managing up empowers staff at all levels. It's important to note that in student affairs, our tasks are about maximizing the student experience. There are a lot of different definitions for managing up, but we're going to give it our student affairs spin. Managing up is when you foster the most effective relationship with your supervisor to achieve mutual goals of helping students.
From my vantage point as a supervisor, managing up is not about sucking up or managing or supervising your supervisor. They already have somebody that's doing that. But it's really more about establishing a rapport and having a process to consciously work with your supervisor to ultimately get the best results for the office. Jeff?
So managing up is not only an important skill for achieving mutual goals, but it is a critical tool in helping you to succeed in your role. Your supervisor has a set of goals that drives your unit's initiatives, projects, and the daily tasks that you work on. Having that managing up mindset has helped me to more easily trust my supervisor's goals and to naturally align with the overall priorities of our unit. By practicing managing up, I have the ability to gain the clearest understanding of my supervisor's timeline as well. Knowing what's coming next is essential to managing up the most effectively. Yet, it's probably the most challenging part. Not everything is predictable, and it's common for us to feel like every task that comes before us is urgent. But managing up helps us to make sure that the priorities are aligned with our supervisor's priorities, and also helps you to assess what are your most important deliverables.
Generally speaking, from a supervisor's perspective, it helps align staffs and their leaders and have mutual organizational goals. So the more alignment we have across the different levels that work in an organization, the more effective we can be to produce our deliverables, and from a higher ed perspective and student affairs perspective, to meet the needs of our students. On a personal level, I have found that managing up, when done well, has developed me as a professional. This is my first role as a supervisor of a staff of 5 other people. And so for me, it's been really helpful to have my staff's input in terms of what the goals are in the office and how to manage that. So from a direct reports perspective, to go up the ladder to me has been helpful for me professionally as well. Jeff?
In a supervisor and supervisee relationship, it is important that the supervisor trusts you to get the job done. I have also realized in my experience thus far that it's even more important that you are confident that your supervisor has that trust in you to get the job done. So I'm going to mention a few tips that have helped me get to that point. When I'm working on a project or task, I try to remind myself every so often to do a goal check. Whether that is with my colleagues when collaborating, directly with my supervisor, or even on my own, it is so important to assess whether the progress that you have made on task is moving towards achieving your unit's goals. For me, these consistent goal checks is what has most often made me realize when it's time to circle back to my supervisor. Some supervisors may prefer a lot of autonomy in their staff, and some may want more frequent updates. But in either of these scenarios, it is essential in managing up to know when it's time to loop back to them, to ask for their help in reevaluating the project that you're working on. When I do need to bring a project back to my supervisor's attention for that goal check, or if I just need to let her know something that has gone wrong in the process, I always have a suggested solution ready to go. It is important to try to solve the problem on your own when you can. But if you end up going down a little bit of a different path than expected or than what was agreed upon, it is essential that you always keep your supervisor informed. It is even more important to make sure that your path is still aligned with their goals. Keeping your supervisor in the loop and having consistent goal checks provides so many benefits to a working relationship, including trust and building open communication. I can say strongly that my supervisor and myself have a very clear, open communication, and I feel comfortable bringing any concerns to her. In building experience of being effective and how I have escalated my projects to my supervisor, I don't have any hesitation when the situation arises that I need to ask for her input when helping myself prioritize my own tasks. It's so hard to say no, especially in student affairs. So instead of saying no, it's important to ask, what are the most time-sensitive tasks when there's just too much on your plate? Essentially, this is an even higher level goal check in terms of prioritizing the overall unit's projects and operations that are assigned to you. I have found in my working relationship that my communication depends on her most effective communication methods. Whether it's emails, chats, calls, visits, or even just messages, you need to find that appropriate balance, and you need to notice and adapt when the message could have been delivered more clearly. There may not be one particular method that works best all of the time, but if your supervisor is busy in meetings all day and you have to send emails, then you need to be the one to remember to follow up on those emails at a reasonable time. If your supervisor is in the office, try to drop in to ask her some questions, but don't be tempted to take advantage of that opportunity too often. You are developing a relationship and you're building your communication strategy. It's so important that you match your communication style with your supervisor's preferences. There will be some trial and error while doing this, but you need to be open to that feedback, and you also need to be willing to give that feedback consistently as well. So my last piece of advice is for you to try to learn your supervisor's skill set and strengths, as they are also higher ed professionals. Your supervisor has a lot of knowledge and experience to offer when needed. I always try to find those moments when other members of my team, including my supervisor, may benefit from some of my own strengths. In return, it's very important to acknowledge your supervisor's skill set and ask for their help. In my experience, my supervisor has appreciated when I have come to her for assistance for her specific skills or just some specific knowledge or insight that she can share with me. And I bet that your supervisor will appreciate your efficiency in moving forward on your projects. And also, it's always good to have that team-oriented mindset as you work to achieve your goals. Anu?
Thank you. From my perspective as a supervisor, I think it's important for people to realize that managing up is not about giving feedback. Certainly giving feedback is a technique that everybody needs to know. We need to learn how to give feedback effectively so that the message comes across as wanted. And we need to be able to take the feedback, respond to it, incorporate it into our day-to-day work. But managing up is not exactly feedback. It's really more about that communication style alignment that Jeff was referencing. In terms of next steps and suggestions, I would say the framing problems with solutions is a really important one that Jeff touched on. You know, sometimes during a busy day, I may not have the time to think of the solutions if somebody comes to me with a problem, but to have somebody come with actual action items of, you know, this is just not working well, but here's a solution that I think can move this project forward. That's really helpful because then I can frame it with a sense of next steps and next ideas of where to go. And it also gives me confidence in that individual that they've already thought about next steps and they're really just making sure that they're in line with my goals. Another suggestion I would have is have awareness of the supervisor's job. Just as you start a role in a new office, for example, you're learning about what you need to do, you know what your expectations are, you're understanding what people are expecting of you. It's also important to know what your supervisor's job is. It's not just about managing the other staff members. They do have their own goals. They've been given priorities by their supervisor and above them. And so it's important for you to know what's on their plate day to day so that it can segue to this next tip, which is timing. It is really important to know what is a reasonable time to bring something up. It can't just be at the time that you're thinking about it. It can't just be when you're working on the project and suddenly you get stuck and then you have to send a message to your supervisor and say, oh my gosh, I'm stuck, can you help me? Because then that makes it feel for the supervisor as if they have to drop everything to support your needs. And that's not what your goal is. You want to be able to be somebody that can work independently, but ask for help when you need it. But check the calendar, for example. In our office, everybody has access to each other's calendars. So capitalizing on each other's strengths, be they supervisor or colleagues, it's important to look at what their schedules look like and to determine, are they able to talk right now? Are they able to support me? Or is it a good time to tell my supervisor something that maybe they don't want to hear? You know, we get it. We work in higher ed. Things happen all the time. Things change all the time as evidenced by what's going on for us now. But it's important to know that even during the busiest times, somebody is doing something else and that you have to time your message appropriately. When are they going to be able to hear it? So for example, something that Jeff has done really well is if he has to give me an update on something that maybe didn't get done, not from his vantage point, but just something that we were waiting on from some other area, instead of telling me the first thing in the morning when I'm starting to set up my day, he's able to look at my calendar and get a sense of, okay, what's on my plate? What am I thinking about? And then is able to deliver that information, even if it's bad news, in a way that I can hear it. I guess in a way it helps you be a step ahead and be proactive about what your staff needs and what your leadership needs as well. And at the end of the day, just remember, we're humans too. You know, yes, we have a leadership role. Yes, we may have other expectations that are not expected of you, but we make mistakes. As I mentioned, this is my first supervisory role, and it's important to know that I'm also learning too. And managing up in an effective way can help me be the better leader that everybody needs me to be. And so try not to put your supervisor on a pedestal. We are human, we make mistakes, and we rely on you as our support to get our job done too. So I hope that this was helpful to everybody. And I think, Jeff, you have some resources that you want to share additionally.
Yes, so we included some resources here that you can go into more depth and details about some of the things we talked about today.
So we hope this was helpful. Again, managing up when you look at the tips that we shared might be things that you're already doing, but it's also just a reminder that it's a way to align with the supervisor relationship with the overall goals of the office and ultimately be successful in meeting the needs of your students. Thank you so much. Have a great day.